So, have you seen some of those headlines lately? The ones about foreclosures being on the rise? It's definitely got a lot of people worried, asking one big question. Are we about to see another 2008? Well, let's get into it. Let's separate the scary headlines from the actual hard data.
I mean, you see a number like that, right? Up nearly 50% in a major city. It's impossible not to feel a little bit of a jolt. And look, that statistic isn't technically false, but the question is, what does a number like that really mean in the grand scheme of things?
And this is the real question, isn't it? It's what's on everyone's mind. The memory of the great financial crisis is still super fresh for so many of us. So it's only natural to make that comparison. So let's break it down and see if that fear is actually justified.
All right, so to really truly understand what's happening, we've got to look past that big, flashy headline number. It's time to dig into the context, the stuff that really matters.
And there it is. That's the number causing all the buzz. A 48% increase in foreclosure closings in Atlanta. It's a real number, for sure. But here's the thing about percentages. They're only as scary as their starting point, right? So let's see what that starting point actually looked like. And this is the crucial piece of context we need. This changes everything. All of those distressed properties we're talking about, the foreclosures, the short sales, the whole shebang, they make up less than 2% of the entire housing market today. Let me say that again, less than 2%.
Okay, and just so we're all speaking the same language, let's do a quick definition. A foreclosure, which you'll also hear called an REO, is when the bank has officially taken the property back. A short sale, on the other hand, is when the bank lets the homeowner sell the house for less than they owe, usually to avoid going through that whole foreclosure process.
You know, this whole process doesn't happen overnight. It starts with what's called a notice of default after payments are missed. After that, the property gets scheduled for an auction, and only if it doesn't sell at the auction does it become REO or bank-owned. It's a pretty long road, and homeowners do have options along the way. All right, now for the main event. This is the big comparison. How does what's happening right now actually stack up against the housing crisis that basically defined a generation? Let's put them side by side. Wow, just look at this chart. The difference is absolutely staggering. Back at the bottom of the market in 2012, an incredible 45% of all home sales in Atlanta were distressed. Think about that. That's nearly 1 out of every 2 homes being sold. Today, it's less than 2%. That's 1 in 50. We're not even playing in the same ballpark here. It's a totally different world.
And this slide really gets to the heart of why it's so different. The 2008 crisis was fueled by incredibly risky lending practices and millions of homeowners who owed way more on their mortgage than their house was actually worth. But today, the whole foundation is different. Lending standards are much, much stricter, and most homeowners are sitting on a record amount of equity. That equity is a huge safety net. It's an exit ramp that so many people just didn't have back then.
So, okay, the market isn't crashing, but it is shifting. It's correcting. And that brings us to the most important part of this whole conversation. What on earth does this mean for you if you're trying to buy a house right now? In a market like this, you have to be a smart buyer. So first things first, don't pay attention to what sellers are asking for. No, you need to look at what similar homes have actually sold for in the last 60 to 90 days. That's your reality. And you base your offer on that data. You've got to take the emotion out of it. This is a business deal. Also, don't forget the other costs. Ask for old utility bills so you can budget properly. And please, always, always get an inspection, especially if you're looking at a bank-owned home that's being sold as is. Now, let's flip the coin. What if you're on the other side of this? What if you're a seller? Well, guess what? The game has changed for you too. If your house has been sitting on the market and you're just hearing crickets, it is time for a serious reality check. You've got to look at what's sold recently and price your home for today's market, not last year's frenzy. Buyers have more choices now, which means they can afford to be picky. And this is so important. If you are facing a real financial hardship, do not stick your head in the sand. Call your lender right away. They have programs and options, but they can't help you if they don't know you're struggling. So when you put all the pieces together, the data paints a really clear picture. We are not watching a 2008-style crash unfold. What we're actually seeing is a much-needed and, frankly, a much healthier market correction. And it's not even one single market out there. It's really a tale of two different markets. For single-family homes, things are pretty balanced and prices are holding steady. But for townhomes and condos, where builders may have gotten a little overeager, it's a completely different story. That part of the market is firmly a buyer's market, and we are seeing prices trend down. This is where the real opportunities for buyers are starting to pop up. Now, if we zoom out and look at the whole country, you can see where most of the new foreclosure activity is happening. States like Florida, Texas, and California are at the top of the list. But even as you look at these numbers, you have to remember the context we've been talking about this whole time. These numbers are rising from rock-bottom, historically low levels, and they still represent a tiny, tiny fraction of the overall market.
So there you have it. The headline screams crash, but the data quietly whispers correction. This is a moment of real change in the housing market, and times like these always create both pitfalls and incredible opportunities. The real question is, now that you've got the full story, how are you going to navigate it?